So let's go ahead and move on to the defensive side of the ball, the guys that are tasked with sacking the quarterback. So the edge rushers. Chase, go ahead and give me your top
Edge
five.
rushers. All right, I've got my number one guy, Will Anderson Jr. Number two, I have Lucas Van Ness. Number three, I have Tyree Wilson. Number four, I have Nolan Smith. And number five, I have Will McDonald V.
Interesting. I always read that as the fourth.
Oh, I think it is. I might have wrote it down
Is
wrong.
Oh, okay. I don't know. Roman numerals, whatever. But anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, awesome. Cool. So pretty similar here. For me, I've got Will Anderson Jr. at 1, Tyree Wilson at 2, Lucas Van Ness at 3, Nolan Smith at 4, and Myles Murphy at 5.
Okay.
Will McDonald just misses that here on the top 5 in my top 5 rankings. But so walk us through. So you put obviously we have pretty much the same, right? Except I have Myles Murphy and you have Will McDonald. So talk to me a little bit about Will McDonald there.
Absolutely. I considered putting Myles Murphy in, and the more I looked into him, I just think Will McDonald has a little higher motor, a little faster, right? I think Myles Murphy benefited from having an offensive, or not an offensive, an elite presence in the middle of the defense, and the guy that we'll talk about probably later down. But I think Will McDonald was kind of the guy for Iowa State, right? I liked his production, and I wasn't. They're very close to me. I just thought, I like speed. Right, it's not the most important thing for a defensive lineman, but when whoever can get off the ball first, you can get that jump on that offensive tackle coming out off the edge. So I think Will McDonald has that speed over there, just a little bit more than Murphy did.
Yeah. So for me, I just kind of looked at kind of just production wise when I look at edge rushers. You'll hear this a lot when we do our mock drafts, but I look at how many sacks and how many pressures you have. And so to me, when I was looking at comparing the two. Myles Murphy just he has more when you combine the hurries and the sacks, he just has more. So for me, trying to balance that out of who to put in 5 and who to be 6, Will McDonald would be my 6, so he's just just on the outside there. Yeah. But and so that's kind of what gave Murphy the nudge for me over, is just a little bit more production as an edge defender.
Yeah. Yeah, and I figured that. I was looking at Myles Murphy. He had the more box stats. That's not a lot of people use that as a knock, right? Box stats. No, they do matter. And I just think, I don't know. I might be an Iowa homer, putting Will McDonald over there, Murphy, but I think they are about the same. Kind of very very pin clip size difference between the two. I just give McDonald the edge on mine.
Yeah, I like it. So let's go ahead and go on to the inside then with some defensive tackles. So I'll go ahead and give you mine here real quick, then I can hear yours. So I've got Jalen Carter at 1, and then I have Brian Brees at 2, Kalijah Kancey at 3, Mazi Smith at 4, and Keanu Benton at 5.
Ooh. All right, Mazi Smith. So I've got. This one we might have some discussion here, but I've got my number 1, obviously Jalen Carter. My number 2 is Brian Breezy. My number 3 is Skia Ika from Baylor. Number 4 is Kalijah Kancey, and then number 5 is Keanu Benton. I'm really kind of big on Skia Ika. I don't know if that's how you pronounce his first name. But
yeah, so I'm interested in that because I just I don't know. I couldn't see it. I can't see it. I'm so excited to hear your kind of thoughts on it.
Let me pull up his. But yeah, I thought he kind of was that defensive anchor for Baylor. I thought he won with a variety of moves, and I'm excited about his ability to both rush the passer and stop the run, right? You don't need, kind of that's why Kalijah Kancey, he might be the better pass rusher out of all of these guys besides Jalen Carter, but his run, he's thin, his run stop ability is not there. I really like Skia Ika and the ability to stop the run. I think I view him as more of a DJ Reader type player, right? Or kind of underrated his whole career, but he's an elite, maybe not elite, maybe great defensive tackle. I don't know. It's kind of one of my bigger draft crushes is Skia Ika from Baylor.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, I get draft coaches, but I don't know. I'm just comparing him with Kalijah Kancey. I don't know how you can do that when you look at the stats that they had last week. Kalijah Kancey just had a way better, way better season. I mean, it's just, I mean, honestly, I don't think when looking at interior defensive linemen, I don't think sacks matter as much as the edge
Yeah,
defenders. But just the amount of pressures, like hurries that he got with Sakia and 0 sacks, 14 I think or 13 hurries, like pressures in there, didn't really seem to really affect the quarterback that much. And I was looking at him and looking at those numbers compared to like Khalija Kancey, who had a lot
yeah,
of numbers, a lot of job affected quarterback. So I respect the draft crush, but definitely that might be the one we're the farthest apart on so far.
yeah. I think so. I don't know. I think he is one of those players that as I look at him, he's got all the right traits. And I think he's a guy that will perform better in NFL, kind of the guy, uh, if it was a quarterback, they call him projects, right? I don't think he's a project, but I just think he's a guy kind of like GJ Reader or kind of a different version of Kenny Clark, right? Maybe not the best pass rusher, but has the ability to with his size, and he's just a run stopping machine in the middle of the field there.
I like it. I like it. So, yeah, well, it's good. I'm glad we kind of finally got more of a kind of a discussion there on
Yeah.
that one because definitely, definitely couldn't be farther from you on that player. But that's the beauty of the draft. Everyone kind of has their draft crushes and the people that they're high on, and
Yeah.
obviously sometimes it works out, and then sometimes it doesn't. So it'll be interesting, to track his history as we look back on this and see, in the
Yeah.
end who kind of had the right take on it. So that's why we love the draft, to see if we were right or we were wrong.
Exactly. All right. Do you want to talk about Maisie Smith a little bit, or because I almost put him in as over Keanu Benton, but he didn't get the nod for me.
I mean, yeah, I could talk about Maisie Smith. Not like a too much here. I don't. When I just was kind of looking at him, I was just looking at somebody who can affect the pass. The quarterback. And so when I was looking at that, I just saw, thought somebody I saw flash as a talent there, but not somebody super consistent all season, but flash as a talent where I think that, once you can kind of get in a system and get comfortable with it, with the proper pieces around you, maybe you're not the main guy on the defense like he kind of was with Michigan. And so, to be successful and kind of put some pressure on the quarterback. So not too high on him. But I think he has a shot at being successful in the league. So that's kind of where I was getting my thoughts with Maisie Smith there.
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, he'd be my sixth man off. I just gave the because of the flashes, kind of, I'm going to steal your word there, but the flashes and the ability that I think I see in Ika, he got bounced to 6. So going on to linebackers. Another position that I'm not a fan of drafting in the first, but I also think this isn't a very good linebacker class. I don't know if it's just me. I don't know if you're in love with this linebacker class, but this is where I have my lowest rankings out of my top 5 when I put them into the round that I think they're talent-wise. I dipped down into like almost the 5th to 6th round with my last guy, but
Yeah, I mean,
I'm interested to see.
For me, the linebackers are one of the hardest. Just for me, one of the hardest positions to kind of rank in mock because it's. I mean, it's hard because there's a lot of that encompasses the linebacker. They have to do everything, right? So they rush the passer, they stop the run, they drop into coverage, they do they do everything on the defense, and so it's a very tough position to play. And for me personally, it's a very tough position to kind of analyze and scout.
Yeah.
Trying to base everything off of all that they have to do. So yeah, definitely interesting here. So definitely, that's keep in mind that when I say, this is definitely a position that I struggle, I'm completely 100% open about that. So my least confident rankings would probably be the linebackers that I have here.
Yeah, and I tend to judge a linebacker more on his coverage ability, right? Blake, we talked about it in the past. Blake Martinez burned me as the Packers fans wanted to sign him to a deal, and this guy couldn't cover the slowest wide receiver in the league, but he could tackle like a machine, right? I want a guy that can drop back into coverage to stop a pass when this is a pass heavy league. But you're right, this is we have tons of linebacker, like Green Bay just drafted Quay Walker, who's an excellent pass rush, right? Kind of struggles on the run, and then they have Devondre Campbell, who is kind of the opposite of that, more of a run stopping linebacker. So it's interesting that the linebacker's position that's asked to do almost everything on the defense. So it is an interesting. This is, I think, the rankings. The consensus rankings kind of mix up a little bit, right? There's never a this is the guy that you have to pick linebacker, because they're pulled all over the field. So I'll give you my top 5 after that. Number 1, I'm going with my man, Captain Jack Campbell. And then number 2, we're doing Drew Sanders. Number 3 is Trenton Simpson. Number 4 is Dorian Williams. And number 5, I have Ivan Pace Jr.
Oh, really? Interesting. Okay, yeah, so I'll go ahead and give you mine here. So at number 1, I have Drew Sanders. At 2, I have Jack Campbell. At 3, I have Trenton Simpson. At 4, I have Dan Henley. And at 5, I have Dorian Williams.
Yeah, okay.
So general consensus there. Not too crazy. I'll tell you the reason why I have Drew Sanders at number 1, and I just think he, out of the linebacker class, just has the highest football IQ. For my linebacker, I just need you to be smart. You're going to wear the dot.
Exactly.
You're going to be calling the defensive plays, and so I need you to be smart. I need you to be able to get people in position on the defense. And so if you're going to have that high football IQ to understand the system that you're in, understand coverages as well as alignment, understand situational football. And when we're looking at this draft class, Drew Sanders, to me, just has the highest football IQ. So that's why he's my number 1.
Yeah, and I understand that completely. That's another aspect that we didn't even touch when we talked about a linebacker's kind of the quarterback of the defense, right? And I think I went with Jack Campbell just because watching this guy play all season and sometimes live, this guy's all over the field. He looks like he can do it all. He tested nuts at the combine. He's an athlete. He can tackle. He can drop into coverage. He can rush the passer. He's got a motor that won't stop. And I think that might just because that's the linebacker that I've quote unquote scouted / watched the most. I think I have the most draw to him. But another guy that I kind of like, we talked about in our past mocks, is number 4. I have it 4 is Dorian Williams. I really like him. I think he's got potential to kind of come in, late, maybe early day 2 or late day 2, early day 3 guy. I really like Dorian Williams. I think he's got the potential to stop the run and to drop into coverage, maybe rush the passer, kind of do what's asked of him.
Yeah, he is both. I mean, his coverage grade specifically is phenomenal. I mean, he can cover, he can play coverage extremely well. And so, obviously that's definitely, important here in the NFL. So it'll be interesting to see, if he can translate that. But I think overall, very well rounded. But his coverage grade is a lot higher than most at the linebacker spot. So I like that pick there. And he's in our top 5, for both of us. So for sure. So, I don't want to do cornerbacks yet. I think cornerbacks are my favorite part of the defense here. So let's go ahead and let's do safeties here real quick. And then we can finish with cornerbacks. So let's go ahead. And Jason, you want to go ahead and give me your top 5 safeties here?
Yeah. So I have number 1, I have Brian Branch. I think he's the consensus number 1, a first round draft grade. Number 2, I have Antonio Johnson. Number 3, I have Jamie Robinson. Number 4, I have Brian Branch's running buddy and Jordan Battle. And then number 5, I finished with old Sidney Brown.
So I have the exact same.
Okay, that's what I figured. I think safety, believe it or not, I think safety might be one of the easier positions to scout, at least for me. And safety is kind of my favorite defensive position. I don't know really why. Green Bay's really never had a stud safety since I've been a fan of them, but I tend to draw myself towards the safeties of the league. So I think I spend a little extra time ranking them, and it's nice to see that we have the same top 5. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, the safety draft, I think, the safety class, I think is pretty straightforward. Like you said, I think it's one of the more easier ones to do. I mean, not a lot of discussion, right? When we have the same ones. I mean, I think Brian Branch is probably a head and shoulders above the rest. I really love Branch. I think he's going to be a day 1 starter, and my early take is he'll be defensive player of the year. I think it's hard for a safety to win defensive player of the year. Yeah. But my early kind of, calling my shot here now, as of right now, is obviously it'll depend on kind of where he does go in the draft, as well. But my early kind of hot take is he'll be defensive player of the year as a safety.
I like it. Hot takes out the gate. And I have a first round grade on him. And I also have a first round grade on Antonio Johnson. I really like him. He's a hard hitting safety. I like my safeties to be able to lower the boom, right? To get the guy that, get him kind of scared of running through that middle of the field. I think Antonio Johnson does that. And he's also an athlete, right? I think there's a common theme, right? I want the best athletes playing football, right? So I really like Antonio Johnson, but of course, Brian, I agree with you. Brian Branch is a head and shoulders above everyone else.
Like we mocked him to your Packers, so if you remember that.
Yes. Go watch that. That's fun. Depot coming to Green Bay.
Okay, let's get down to the cornerback. So my favorite position on the defensive side of the ball. So this is the one where I think we might have some a little different differences here. So let me go ahead and give you mine, and I'll go ahead and get yours, and we can go ahead and discuss. So, number 1, Devin Witherspoon. Number 2, Christian Gonzalez. 3 is Joey Porter Jr. 4, Emmanuel Forbes, and 5, Deontay Banks.
Okay, so we have some of the same guy. We change a little bit to the end. We have a little different positioning. My guys are: 1 is Christian Gonzalez, 2 is Devon Witherspoon, 3 is still Joey Porter Jr., number 4 is Deontay Banks, and number 5 is Cam Smith.
Okay, so no Forbes.
No Forbes. Forbes would be my 6.
Gotcha. Yes, I have Smith as my 6. So
okay.
Let me go ahead and give you my thoughts here. So I was high on Devin Witherspoon all year. Through the combine and the pro day, I really fell in love with Christian Gonzalez. It was very tough for me to put him number 2, but when I just kept looking at it, I just couldn't get over the fact that Devin Witherspoon only allowed a passer rating of 25.3 when targeted, and only allowed 35.5% completion rate. And so when I was just looking at that, like that's just stuck in my head. As much as I wanted to put Christian as number 1 there, I just couldn't get away with that. That whenever Devin was targeted, he did not allow them to complete the pass. And so for me, that's in the end, that's what kind of sealed Devin up there as my number 1 corner.
Yeah. So I was high on Christian Gonzalez all year, watching, Big Ten guy, watching a lot of Illinois. This Devon Witherspoon was just nuts. Go back to scout him, and I think the first game I picked was his Wisconsin, I believe he played, and that happened to be his worst game, maybe of his career. He looked lost out there, and I can't hold him against him one game because I watched other games, and this guy's, he's the real deal, and he's hard hitting. I just think Christian Gonzalez, is more of a ball hawking a little bit more than Devon Witherspoon. Devon Witherspoon's kind of a run help cornerback, which is not a knock on either one of those two guys, right? I like them both, and I wouldn't be surprised if they get flipped in the draft, right? Witherspoon starts gaining steam. Witherspoon, I just hope, I think Witherspoon fits into a very unique defense that uses safeties more in a press and, wants to be down in the receiver's face. And there's a lot of teams that do that, but I think Gonzalez you can plug him in kind of on most teams, on all teams actually, and he'd be a absolute stud. I think the big one, right, Deontay Banks is, I talked about him in our combine risers. He kind of jumped out. 3 Big Ten guys. Joey Porter, we have at 3. Joey Porter, I think it's self-explanatory. His very long arms reach and his ability to keep up with the wide receivers on almost every break. And number 5, I have Cam Smith. That's kind of where we differ. You've got Forbes. I've got Cam Smith. Forbes definitely the more ball hawking, interception ready safety, kind of the Trayvon Diggs type. But Cam Smith, going against my normal draft strategies of just getting athletes, I think Cam Smith just plays the game, right? Not the most athletic, still kind of speedy, ran like a 4.5, maybe 4.4 in between there. But I think he just does everything right? I think he's just the guy that can come in and be maybe not the number 1 anytime soon. Maybe he needs a couple years to develop into that, but he can definitely be the number 2 guy. And I have a first round grade on all 5 of my cornerbacks. I really like this cornerback class.
Yeah, extremely, extremely deep cornerback class. I have a round 1 on everyone actually, except for Cam Smith. I think he's a round 2 guy. But for me, with the Forbes is obviously the ball hawking things. I mean, he has an NFL or a college record of 6 career pick sixes. So not only is he getting interceptions, but he's turning it into points.
Yeah.
And just the ball hawk, obviously, kind of like you mentioned with Trayvon Diggs, but also a guy that's not giving up a lot. I mean, he only gave up, a completion percentage of 53%. So he's when we talked about Trevon Diggs, yes, he was a ball hawk, but he was also giving up a lot of yardage because he was so aggressive. Whereas with Forbes here,
Yes.
he's going to be aggressive, but he's also going to make the play on the ball if he knows he's not going to be able to get the pick. And so he's able to kind of pull it back and make the play and get the PBU to do that. And so for me, having the smarts to be able to be aggressive enough to go and get the pick, most times get it, but also recognize when you're not going to be able to get it, instead of leaving your team out to dry, your safety have to come in behind you to clean up your mess. You can be smart and pull up and just make the play on the ball or tackle the receiver. So that's for me kind of why Forbes is up there over Cam Smith.
Yeah. And I we just kind of switched on those two because I've got a high second round grade on Forbes, but I'm not mad that he's in your top 5. I think he is a baller. Like we both said, that this cornerback class is deep, and I think they're pretty good. I think this is probably one of the better cornerback classes I've seen coming into a draft.